Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over today's is it 9 games? I think it is. 9 game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings. Before we continue though, if you guys could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheets I build every single night for the NBA season, I don't do lineups or anything, but I do make a cheat sheet, defense versus position chart. I build projections. I have my advanced statistics on there, their projected minutes, their rest, and I also have my Discord chat as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think I already plugged the Twitter. So yeah, anyway, let's get into the guys I have interest in as of right now. Again, the slate can change throughout the day. That's why I have all my updated information on my spreadsheet. But as of right now, this is who I'm looking at. And I don't know if Giannis is going to play. So if he does, though, he would be my top spend up option. Now, it might be a little risky because his minutes are never always like fully secure, considering they are conservative with his minutes, because when they get ahead, they have no problem pulling him out of the game. But is he going to play? I'm not sure. If he does, like I said, favorite spend up, but we'll go over if he doesn't play, so I'll have you guys covered there. But dude's averaging an insane 1.9 points per minute on this season, which, just to put in perspective, James Harden, one of the best fantasy players ever, he's only averaging 1.65 points. I say only, but compared to Giannis, I mean, he's averaging 1.65 points per minute. Giannis is averaging 1.9. Now, the thing is, though, James Harden averages nearly 40 minutes per game, while Giannis is only averaging like 31 to 32 minutes per game. So, it kind of evens out a little bit there. But, Giannis, when he gets a full complement of minutes, it's like game over for everybody on the slate, because the dude can put up 80 points just with, at ease. He'll do it with ease. He also has a near 38% usage rate. Now, like I said, minutes are the only problems, because the Bucks, they tend to blow people out. They're one of the top 3 teams in the NBA right now, top 2, them and the Lakers. And even when he doesn't play big minutes, I mean, look, so he played 22 minutes versus New York. He still scored 54 points. That's about, 2 points per minute right there. Or no, that's well over, because 22 times 2 is 44. Doing some math here. So well over 2 points per minute right there. 20 minutes versus Detroit, 51 points. I mean, the problem is he doesn't play a full complement of minutes a lot of times, but if he needs to, he'll play close to 40 minutes. Versus Utah in a close game, he had 38 minutes, had 83 fantasy points, dropped 50 real-life points. 35 minutes versus Atlanta, 56 points, which is a little bit disappointing, but only had 10 rebounds, 30 real-life points. He'll usually do better than that on a nightly basis. But at 11,200, you get quite the savings off of James Harden. James Harden's at 12.6, so 1,400 cheaper. I'd rather play Giannis in a great matchup versus Memphis. And this game should be a track meet. I said that when they were playing New Orleans, because both teams were such, high pace. Both played at a very high pace, and the other team didn't play a lot of defense. This is pretty much the same matchup for Milwaukee as it was versus New Orleans last game out, because Memphis, they play fast. They're both top 6 in pace of play, and Milwaukee, they play good defense, but Memphis, not so much. They're the 4th worst defensive team right now for points given up. They're horrendous versus guards, but they're not great versus forwards either, and I really don't care about matchups when it comes to Giannis anyway. Just the only problem ever with Giannis is the game going to stay competitive? As of right now, it's an 8-point spread. They might be factoring in that Giannis doesn't play in this game. I'm not totally sure. And if he does play, I can honestly see a way where this game doesn't stay close and we don't see those full minutes, especially coming off an injury. So I'd have to think they would have a reason to push him, especially versus Memphis. So he's probably more of a riskier play today if he is good to go. So honestly, I'm kind of just hoping he's out just to make life easier, because we're going to have some really good options in Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, Ersan Ilyasova, and Brook Lopez, which we'll talk about them in a little bit. So I'm actually just hoping Giannis is out, because then it makes things a lot more simpler, and we have some excellent mid-range plays on today's slate. But another spend-up guy, because Giannis is a little risky. I like Karl-Anthony Towns here at 9,900, and the price is very fair for him as well. I was all over him in that game versus Phoenix. He had 35 minutes, 33 points, 15 boards, 60 fantasy points. Typical Karl-Anthony Towns game. And anytime he's below 10K, I automatically have interest, because that's just a little bit too cheap for a guy like Cat. 9,900, pushing it a little bit, but still below 10K, so it counts. And to be honest, he's been a little up and down this season. I mean, he's a great player, but sometimes he gives you those 40-point games. Like versus Utah is a tough matchup, 41 points. Versus the Lakers, tough matchup, 37 points. Memphis, 44 points, which is pretty disappointing, especially at 10-8. But, 52, 60, 62, then 34 versus Utah. So, in bad matchups, he can struggle a bit. But this is a solid matchup. It's more middle of the road. Clippers are 15th versus centers, but, it's Cat. He should be able to overcome this. And I like the game environment here. Both teams do play pretty fast. Minnesota is 3rd in pace of play, while the Clippers are 8th. So I do like the pace of this game. Also, we have a 230-point over-under, which is the highest on the entire slate. Also, it's a little bit of a late hammer at 9:30. I always like getting guys that end up playing late. So if I have a guy that's close in projection with talent, so let's just say Cat and LeBron, I have them within points of each other. I typically like to get the guy that's starting later because I just like having the late game hammer. Because if my guy early sucks, I'm pretty sad going into the late games because I'm like, well, maybe I should have played Downs because I know he's going to be high owned and everyone's going to pass me. So I just like playing the guys that are late. I actually don't know what time that Miami game starts exactly, but I have to assume since it's Miami it starts at 7. But either way, I like Towns quite a bit, and that's just, you should really never play like that. Just playing guys in the later games, it doesn't make a difference. But just personally, I like playing guys that start later, and he's been great this year most of the time. 1.54 points per minute, 28% usage rate. So Karl Anthony Towns at 9,900, definitely a solid play tonight, and he's grading out as a pretty good point per dollar option compared to the rest of these high end options. Russell Westbrook versus Orlando, probably going to pass there. Joel Embiid, I do have interest at 9,600. So he smashed last night, had a huge game in the absence of Al Horford, 38 real points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 66 fantasy points, played 36 minutes. He balled out, and I actually didn't play him in cash last night, which was a mistake, but I still made it, but yeah, I was sweating that out at the end because he only had I think he had 40 points heading into the fourth quarter. Or 37, and I was like, yeah, not too bad. He went absolutely off, won the game. But yeah, Embiid had a great game last night. Now the only concern here with Joel would be that it's a back-to-back, and he did log 36 minutes last night. Now Embiid's not someone I typically love using on a back-to-back, and I think he's only done it once this season. But last time there was a back-to-back and he played, he followed it up with a 35-minute game. He followed up a 35-minute game the game prior with a 33-minute game versus Indy where he had 58 fantasy points. So I don't know if this is in the game log. No, it is. So versus the New York, he played 35 minutes, had 57 fantasy points. Then the next day versus Indianapolis, 33 minutes, 58 fantasy points, 32 real life points. So I think he'll be fine here. And this is a pretty good spot versus New Orleans. And even if Al Horford is out, it's even better of a play with Joel Embiid because he's just going to have to play more minutes down low. And there's just more usage and minutes to go around down low. So would like Joel Embiid even more if Horford ends up sitting. And I'd like the pace up spot here for Philly. New Orleans is 4th in pace of play while Philly is 20th. And New Orleans is also bottom 5 defensively. 13th versus centers, but doesn't matter about matchups with Joel Embiid. Boston wasn't the easiest matchup last night. He dropped 66. No one really can guard him in the NBA. He's averaging over 1.5 points per minute, 31% usage rate. The minutes he's never really going to play, near 40 minutes in a game, and especially on a back-to-back. I think I only have him projected for about 30 minutes tonight. That's just being a little conservative and safe there. But I think I have him projected for about 50 fantasy points at 9,600, so not too bad, and he's pretty cheap at 9,600, so don't mind taking some stabs at Joel Embiid tonight. Then going to the list here, I think Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are fine for GPP. So say you want to play Karl Anthony Towns, I think running that back with Kawhi Leonard or Paul George would be fine. I don't think they're cash game plays for me because usually if one's out, I'll have interest in the other. But when they're both playing, I'm a little iffy. Now, I did play them both versus Washington, but I believe that was also a smaller slate on last Sunday. And it's versus Washington. But, Minnesota, they're not very good defensively. So Kawhi Leonard and Paul George would definitely be solid plays. I don't really view them as cash game plays, though, with them both playing. Bam versus the Lakers, I'll pass, even though he had a monster game last time out. Was it versus Washington? Or no? Was it Atlanta? Yeah, versus Atlanta. We had 44 minutes, 66 fantasy points, had the triple-double. But really no interest versus the Lakers. Rudy Gobert would be fine. He's 8,300. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but he's been pretty good. And he had I believe he scored 52 points his last time versus Golden State, if I remember correctly, or 47. And I think they played him a few games before that, and I think he had over 50 points. So he would be fine. He's going to get you your double-double, but 8,300 is a little expensive. Ben Simmons, it's a good matchup versus New Orleans, but I just don't really like the guy. And whenever I play him, he screws me, and he's sucked the past 2 games. Played 37 minutes and 36 minutes. Tougher matchups. 28 points, 25 points. I'm probably going to have to pass on Ben Simmons with, Joel Embiid in because it just really hurts his usage. He's not a high usage guy anyway, so I'm probably going to pass on Ben Simmons. But Donovan Mitchell, I do have interest in Mitchell on this slate. He's at 8,100, and price came up a little bit. I mean, it's been in that 7K range, so 8,100 kind of sucks that it came up so much, but I think he's a good play, and I thought he was going to screw us last game versus Minnesota because I've been playing him the past, I think, 3 games with Mike Conley being out, and he picked up 2 quick fouls, and I think he left the game with 7 minutes left in the first. I was like, well, Donovan Mitchell's going to screw us again. He was 84% in cash, so it didn't really matter there. I was just kind of worried about GPPs. I think he was like 50, 60% in my GPPs. So, I mean, it still really didn't matter too much, but I just didn't want to get a dud 3 times in a row from Donovan Mitchell. But ended up pulling through at 30 real life points, 47 fantasy points. Game stayed pretty close, 36 minutes. Good matchup versus Minnesota. And with no Mike Conley, his usage has been well over 30%. And it's a good matchup versus Golden State, 27th versus shooting guards. And he does well in good matchups. He's the kind of guy that's going to struggle in slow paced matchups. But Golden State doesn't play too fast. They're 16th in pace of play, so that's not great. But they're also 27 versus shooting guards, and he's had 44 points. His past 2 matchups versus Golden State. So Donovan Mitchell with no Mike Conley, I think he's a pretty solid play tonight. Would not surprise me if he gets 50 plus points in this matchup. So definitely like Donovan Mitchell. Sabonis 8100. He's just one of my favorite cash game plays every single night. You know what you're gonna get with him. He's going to get you that double-double, and he's one of the most solid players every single night. And honestly, he should be priced more towards 9K than to 8K like he is every single night. Now, he's not in the 7K range, which is always a mistake, but he has been very good recently. 49 points, 56, 45, 46, 39, 47, and then a little rough stretch there, but he's just been solid. He never really gets you a dud. And I mean, double-double the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, last 10 games he's had double-double. I think he's had I want to say it was 20 double-doubles in the past 22 games or something like that. But Sabonis, he is one of the most solid plays in the league. He's averaging 18 points per game, 13 rebounds, 24% usage rate, 1.23 points per minute. This is an elite matchup for Sabonis. Atlanta is second worst defensive unit for points given up, and they are ranked 30th, which is dead last versus power forwards, which is what Sabonis is. And I already went over that, but it's a pace-up spot versus Atlanta, 7th in pace of play. Indy's 19th. I think Sabonis is an excellent play tonight. 8,100. I wouldn't say he's an absolute core play, but if you need a solid cash game play and you're not sure if you want to go with someone Ben Simmons is 8,200. I would much rather play Sabonis because I think Sabonis has a much safer floor. So, Simmons has got a high ceiling, but Sabonis has a high ceiling as well. He can hit 60 fantasy points, no problem, especially versus Atlanta. So I definitely like Sabonis a lot tonight as a really solid cash game play. Scrolling down the list here, Brogdon's fine versus Atlanta, but I just prefer paying the extra 600 for Sabonis. Tobias Harris is out. If Al Horford is out, you'd have to have some interest in him. He balled out last game versus Boston. He had 50 fantasy points, 23 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, played 33 minutes. Now, I'm not going to go over him too much because I don't know if Horford's going to play or not, but just something to keep on your radar if he indeed is out, because New Orleans is one of the worst defensive teams in the league, and it's a pace-up spot, all the reasons except for Joel Embiid. So Harris would be on my radar. He's a little pricey, but I think he'll still be fine. But now I got to talk about some of these Bucks guys. So if Giannis is out, I want to get you guys covered on what I would think, what my thoughts would be if Giannis happens to be out. I didn't do that last game because obviously I had no idea Giannis was going to be out. There was nothing on the injury report, nothing. So I assumed he was good to go, but ended up getting ruled out, I think an hour after I posted my video. So the whole video was worthless. But if he is out, Chris Middleton would become, him and Eric Bledsoe would become the 2 top plays on the slate. So Chris Middleton, he's just a good player, and he's been great the past 4 games, and 3 of those were with Giannis in. So if Giannis out, definitely it would be a big boost. And the minutes really haven't been there for Chris yet, but he's coming off the injury, so he's been getting weaned in. But 37, 35, 39, 40 when Giannis was out the last game. Played 31 minutes versus New Orleans. Game did get out of hand late, but he still had he played full run, basically 31 minutes. And small sample size with Giannis off the court, but Middleton's averaging 1.26 points per minute with a 23% usage rate. Also like this game environment a ton. Both teams play blazing fast, like I already said. They're both top 6 in pace of play, and it's a great matchup versus Memphis, one of the worst defensive units in the league. About below average versus forwards, but they are dreadful versus guards, which we'll talk about with Eric Bledsoe. Now, obviously, if Giannis is out, chances of this game staying closer is much easier. I believe it's an 8-point spread right now. So, if Giannis is out, Chris Middleton, one of the top plays, if not the top play on the entire slate, just point per dollar wise. Then going down to his teammate, Eric Bledsoe. I also love him as well. What's Chris Middleton, 6,900 or 6,800, so they're only 100 difference. But you would have to lock both of these guys in. They'll probably be 90% plus owned in cash games if Giannis is out. But you got to like Bledsoe here, and smaller sample size, like I said, with Middleton, but with no Giannis on the court this season, he's got a 34.1% usage rate and Buckle up, a 1.77 points per minute rate on the year. That's better than James Harden. 38-minute sample size, but still 1.77 points per minute. Elite matchup versus Memphis as a guard. They're 24th versus point guards and 29th versus shooting guards. So Eric Bledsoe, he should be able to smash in this matchup. Definitely someone you would want to lock in if Giannis happens to miss this game. Then after this, it gets a little grosser. You could play Fournier in GPPs at 6,400. I think he's got a good chance of getting over 30 fantasy points versus Houston. I believe they're 30th versus small forwards, which, right up in Evan Fournier's alleys. And they also struggle pretty bad versus shooting guards as well. So Fournier, you're going to see 30 plus minutes in a competitive game here. Getting over 30 fantasy points, I could definitely see that. They're going to need him to score points to stay close in this game. So definitely wouldn't mind going to him. You could also play his teammate Jonathan Isaac at 6,100. Again, Houston sucks defensively versus forwards and shooting guards. So, but Jonathan Isaac, small forward, has power forward eligibility. I think he gets you over 30 fantasy points, 6,100. Definitely not a bad play as long as this game stays competitive. So honestly, I think he could hit 40 fantasy points in this game. I like the game environment. It's a big pace-up spot for the Orlando Magic. They are one of the slowest teams in the NBA, and Houston, they're top 5 in pace of play. So definitely wouldn't mind that at all. And just going down the list a little bit, see if any Al Horford news came out when I was recording. No, nothing. That's just from yesterday. So just scrolling down some more. I'm not really seeing too much. We could talk about Cody Zeller. I think he is 47. Yeah, Cody Zeller. He's at 4,700 now. His minutes are all wacky. I think we can project him for about 20 to 22 minutes tonight. I think that's a pretty fair projection, and he's been over a point per minute this season. Honestly, he hasn't been bad the past 4 games either. 32 points versus Brooklyn, 25 versus Atlanta, 28 versus Washington, 23 versus Brooklyn. I got to be honest, though, he's had the easiest stretch of matchups possible you can ask for. Brooklyn, Atlanta, Washington, Brooklyn. And it gets even easier. Chicago, they are 30th versus center. So honestly, the good matchups will continue here. Cody Zeller, if he gets 20, 22 minutes, wouldn't surprise me if he got 25 fantasy points. So not too bad at 4,700. I wouldn't expect him to have too much ownership either. Brook Lopez, though, I'd rather play him if Giannis happens to be out at 4,800. Now, so I saw a tweet on Twitter. It says his face looks like a Roman Caesar, and it actually does. Just something funny I thought. But anyway, funny story with Brook Lopez. I did not play him the night he was 50% owned when Giannis was out, and there was a lineup train in cash games. They had Brook Lopez, Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez, and I was up 23 points with going against Brook Lopez, and I thought I was dead because he scored 19.75 points in the first half. So I was like, well, my night is over, because there was a 60 lineup person and train and all the 50s. I was in all the $50 double ups, and every single one had a 60 person lineup train with this lineup, and I was pretty much dead because Lopez needed 3 points in the second half to just pass me. Well, he ends up only scoring 2 points that half, so I luckily survived. That was a big sweat for cash games, I gotta say. But yeah, Brook Lopez, I'm very glad he sucked the second half, but I hope he does well tonight, because if Giannis is out, I will definitely have to want to play Brook Lopez at 4,800. He's had over a point per minute with a 21% usage rate with Giannis off the court this season. Should see 25 plus minutes, so definitely wouldn't mind Brook Lopez. He also got into some foul trouble last game as well, where he had 5 personal fouls. Didn't even score in the second half, so I don't think he did, at least. So Brook Lopez would be definitely a solid play versus Memphis. Would have interest in him. You could also play Ilyasova. Only problem with Ilyasova is his price came up quite a bit. Now, he had a really good game last time out. He was only 3,400 though, but 18 points, 9 boards, 36 points. That's more of a ceiling game for Ilyasova. 2 for 3 from deep, but he's going to see close to 30 minutes if Giannis happens to miss, and you definitely have to have interest. He's averaging 0.83 points per minute. Now, he's still a fine point per dollar play, but he's not an elite, absolute lock to hit 7x like he was when he was 3,400. But Ilyasova 4,600. If he can do 3/4 of what he did in the last game, he's definitely still a solid play at 4,600. So wouldn't mind Ilyasova. I'd prefer to play Brook Lopez for only 200 more, because I think he's more of a solid option. But again, Ilyasova would be fine. Then the cheapest I'm looking at right now, just as of right now, is Terrence Ross at 4,300. So I'm liking some of these cheap Orlando Magic guys going up against Houston, because they're pretty cheap. Yeah, I don't think the spread was too much. If I I might be wrong there, so don't quote me, but I can't remember the spread, but I think it was a decent over-under, and if Orlando can keep this game close. I said Cleveland versus Cleveland that, Kevin Love and them were riskier plays because the game might get out of hand, but the game stayed close, so Kevin Love ended up being a really fine play. So if this game stays close, Terrence Ross, he should see about 30 minutes tonight, and he's been about 0.86 points per minute on the season, and it's a big pace-up spot for the Magic, and the Houston Rockets are dead last versus small forwards, and you're dead last versus shooting guards. So Terrence Ross would definitely be a very solid play tonight at 4,300. Definitely popping up as a pretty solid point per dollar option. So Terrence Ross, definitely you can have someone on your radar. And I'm not sure if I love it, but there's a guy that's popping up as a decent value on my sheet right now, and I do trust the sheet. So DeAnthony Melton, 3,900. He's popping up as a decent value. I think I got him for like 23 points tonight. So the minutes aren't really totally safe, but I'm just saying he's popping up as a decent value, so keep DeAnthony Melton on your radar. That's pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. As of right now, again, things can change throughout the day, but if Giannis is out, I got you guys covered there. But before I head out, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and I will see you guys in the next video.